So as some of you may know, I'm working on collecting every LEGO Star Wars minifigure ever made, and I've got a good chunk of them done. The new guys are at the top, the old guys at the bottom, and spaces in between for everyone I still need. If you didn't know that, I've got a nice series that I'm working on, so I'll link that in the top corner here for you. But a lot of these guys just end up sitting here on the wall for an indefinite amount of times, just sitting there collecting dust, not getting a whole lot of use out of them. So today, I'm going to use a random number generator with every number assigned to a spot on the wall. And I'm going to make 3 random Mocs for the minifigures. We'll get a random guy from the wall and make a little vignette for them. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So here is the random number generator that I'm going to use. This is just the first thing that pops up when you type random number generator into Google. So we're going to be using 1 to 1,322 because that's how many spaces there are on the wall. So of course, not every space is actually filled. There's lots of gaps. So if we get an empty space, we'll just go to the closest guy to it. So let's see what we got here. First one is going to be 1,309, so a really new guy. 93, a pretty old guy. And then 1,253, so another pretty new guy. All right, let's see who those guys are. All right, 1,309 is Commander Fox. This guy will be fun. I have some cool ideas that maybe we can try out for him. All right, so 93 actually goes to this space right here. And I think for the closest guy, we'll actually just go bottom. So we'll do Old Skiff Lando. This one should be interesting to do. All right, then 1253 actually correlates to this empty spot, so we'll just go one to the right and take this 501st Clone Officer, the second clone, so we'll see what we can do with him. To make the vignettes, first I get a 16 by 16 base of black plate. Then I make a raised base around it so that it looks real nice. Then I add some filler brick in so that I can put the plate on top of it for whatever terrain I need. Then I make it a buddy. And another even bigger buddy. First up, I have the vignette for Commander Fox. So for his scene, I definitely used a few other minifigures to enhance the scene here. We got Ahsoka and a couple of shock troopers lying on the ground. And this, of course, is depicting the scene where Fox hunts down Ahsoka when she is framed for murder. I'm very proud about how this one turned out. I tried to use several different techniques while constructing this vignette. One thing that I did that I'm not super experienced is a snot technique, and that of course is studs not on top. I used it here to capture the wall scene in the Republic prison, which has the very specific lighting. So here is how the wall looks in the mock, and this is how it was constructed. You see the bricks here at the bottom, whereas the plate here on top, and I constructed it up here with plates in the middle to get the lights, and I used these different headlight bricks here to be able to greeble it just a little bit. I of course used these, I don't know what they're called, masonry type bricks here to give a little extra texture. Next, I created this column with headlight bricks, and it's very important to use these headlight bricks here because then the studs on the bottom of the regular bricks will not line up perfectly if you use just other standard studs on the side pieces. And the wall and the pillar connect like so. Then I leave a little stud here for the wall to connect to. And the whole wall simply goes in like this. Then the whole wall goes in like this. Very simple. Then I use the same technique for the wall at the end of the doorway. And the doorway itself is incredibly simple with different wedge bricks there that form a little, doorway. And I try to use a little bit of an illusion to add extra space for the tiny little vignette to show that there is extra, a hallway behind there because the wall itself is not completely flush, but simply because of the small size of the vignette, I had to do a little play there. The floor is super simple. I simply plated it off and then added a few bricks there for texture. And of course, I have the dead clones there that were placed by Barriss to fool Fox and the rest of the clones, and Ahsoka is making her escape through the doorway. And that does it for Fox's vignette. Let's get on to Lando's. Next up, we have Old Skiff Guard Lando. Now, this was the minifigure I was probably least excited to make a little vignette for. He's definitely the least interesting in my opinion, but I had a lot of fun making this one. It is supposed to represent Jabba the Hutt's dungeons in Return of the Jedi, while Lando is sneaking around before Luke comes in. In this mock, I was able to try my hand at a little bit of rock work. I definitely have, quite a ways to go, but I think it looks, pretty natural enough for Jabba's dungeon. I was working on a flat plane here. I didn't want to build it super high into the sky, so I tried my hand at just flat plane rock work, and I think it came out pretty nice. For the jail cell itself, we have a little bit of masonry bricks for greebling. I got some studs on the side, and of course a big old metal door to keep the prisoners inside. For the door construction, I built from the bottom up. We got bricks here and then some bricks with the studs on the side. Then I attached some tile and a jumper plate in the middle here. And for the finishing touch, I add a little console piece. The door slots in nice and easy right here. Then the roof fits on right on top. And I of course will edit out the struggle as I make the roof flush. And there of course is some poor soul who crossed Jabba the Hutt and is now going to spend the rest of his days in this poor dingy dungeon. Lando himself is walking on some really simple groundwork, a little bit of blend of regular tan and dark tan, some bones strewn across. And that does it for Lando's dark, dingy dungeon. Let's get on to the 501st Officer. Next up, I have the 501st Officer. So for this vignette, I decided to do the larger base so that I can capture the setting a little bit better. And as you can see, I decided to capture Theed from Battlefront 2. The 501st Trooper Battle Pack was definitely based on Star Wars Battlefront 2, so I had to go with an iconic map from the game. And when I think of the new Battlefront 2, I think Theed is one of the standout maps. Up front, I built a couple of lampposts, and they're pretty simple. We got a bunch of cones and cylinders, and then some minifigure heads for the lights, and then, of course, just some greebling on top to get you a little bit more detailed. I tiled off the ground for that nice, smooth, rich Theed look. I used tan and dark tan to achieve this, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looked. Try to use some striping to get some more detail in that regard. I also added some foliage on either side of the house, just to get a little bit more detail. Up front is a stairway that leads to the house, and this isn't the best house I've designed, but I am pretty happy with how it came out. So I don't have a lot of sand green pieces, so I had to buy a lot of these on Bricklink, and with the few pieces I had on hand, I built a very simple looking roof and tried to make a nice facade of a house. I did the doorway, I got some foliage in the windows there, a little bit of an arch, a gold doorknob, and just some masonry bricks to add a little bit more detail. And the finishing touch, it's definitely not bad. I think it could be better, absolutely, but with the few pieces I had on hand, I'm very proud of how this one turned out. And that completes the overview of the 501st Officer. Now let's get to the wrap-up. Now for the wrap-up, I want to run through each minifigure individually, give them a little background, how much they're worth, what set they came out in, and just give you my thoughts on them. So the first guy we had up was Commander Fox, and this guy came out last year in 2023 in the Coruscant City gunship, and it's an interesting minifigure. He goes for about $25 currently, so not super cheap, but also not super expensive as far as clone commanders go. And this guy has gotten talked about a lot recently. He's not perfect, but it is a minifigure that I am glad to have in my collection. I mean, Fox is a cool looking clone, even if they didn't quite get his look quite right. Like, I know the details aren't super accurate to his actual appearance, but that aside, like the white chest plate looking pink just because of the printing, the waistcloth here not being an actual piece. I mean, there are some issues with the minifigure itself. Also, I feel like he should have a black visor, but oh well, I think it might be dark gray, but when I think of Fox, it should be black. But anyway, besides that, it is a great looking minifigure. If we take that off, that's a cool looking head, right? It's got some great printing all around if we forego the coloring. Underneath, he does just have the new standard clone trooper head, and it's an alright figure. I think it's gotten trash talked quite a bit recently, and I think it's largely undeserved, just a lot of nitpicks. In the middle, we have Lando Calrissian. This guy came out in the old Jabba's sail barge, and I believe that was the year 2007. He goes for about $15 now. He is, not a super interesting character in my opinion. He's not super cool looking. This is back when they're doing super simple printing. And honestly, Skiffguard Lando is not my favorite character. I mean, I don't think he's a lot of people's favorite character. I mean, even if anyone collects Star Wars Black Series, he is a peg warmer to the extreme. But a couple standouts for this figure is the helmet. This was a brand new mold for the figure at the time. So it's cool that we do have this mold. That is a very nice piece to have. She's got the standard Lando face that they were doing at the time. The printing, and there goes the entire thing. The printing itself is actually not terrible. I like the reflective gold on his armor piece there. He's got nothing on the back. He's a pretty plain looking figure. But I will say the helmet is a nice addition to him. It really rounds him out. Then on the right here, we have the 501st Trooper Officer, and this is a pretty good minifigure in my opinion. He's appeared in the Battlefront series, so they captured that, likeness pretty well, I think. A similar issue to Fox, the printed waistcloth, I feel like that should be an actual physical piece, but oh well. Besides that, the printing on this is phenomenal. I have no issues with the printing. Besides that, I really like the blue antenna they gave us there. That really adds a lot of detail, I feel like. Underneath, of course, is just the standard clone head. He also came out in 2023 in the 501st Trooper Battle Pack. I mean, he is pretty cheap to pick up right now. He's about $2. But that does it for this video. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments what your favorite vignette is, and if you have any ideas for this series to continue, because I am really enjoying doing this. I've done this a couple times in the past, so if you guys have any ideas for the future, let me know. But until then, I'll see you next time.